This week on the TT show, Russia has sued Google for more money than what is currently on Earth. Apple Intelligence launches. We go over Intel's new Core Ultra CPUs. New AMD RDNA 4 details. Sony seals the fate of Concord. Gamers suffer blow from US Copyright Office. A portable PS4. And Apple's new Magic Mouse proves the company has no idea where it should put a charging port. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the TT show. My name is Jack Connor. I'm a hardware editor over at Tweaktown, and today I'm joined by my co-host
Costa Andriadis, gaming hardware editor at Tweaktown.
Hello. We are back for another episode.
Definitely. Another, a stacked episode in terms of news. I mean, you covered some of it in the intro. There's stuff that fell over to the wayside, as usual, but there's a lot to get through. But just before we started, it was overnight when Apple did its big announcements for M4 and everything else.
Correct. So, yes. It's been a little staggered. Well, they did, at least the emails were staggered, but they initially started off with the M4 Mac lineup, which is what we predicted last week from the insider, Mr. Mark Gurman. In Gurman we trust. He is just so on point with the calls. It's unbelievable. And yes, we have a complete new lineup of Macs, and maybe we'll cover that. I didn't do the article on them, so I don't know all of the actual specifics, but
yep.
Maybe I can look into that and then get back to you guys next week on a breakdown. And maybe we've found out by then what is probably the most valuable in terms of offerings for the price to performance. Because I haven't actually had a chance to look at the specs specifically.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance either. I mean, it's just so much to go. Like so even when you cover news, it's like you see the headlines, you're like, okay, I would be normally interested and click on that, but because I've got these other 5 stories I'm working on at the moment, it's like, well, that's fresh in my mind. I need to know that. And then, you get distracted with, doing a dungeon in Diablo or 2, and then you get distracted with social media, and then you get distracted with whatever.
YouTube. Yeah, YouTube, and now you're behind. That is, one of the continuous hurdles that you have to get over when you're working from home.
If only
I struggle with it.
An intelligent assistant, some sort of artificial intelligence.
Like Apple Intelligence?
Potentially.
Well, if you did want Apple Intelligence, iOS 18.1 is how you're going to get it. And what I did instead of covering the hardware is I looked at all of the new features within iOS 18.1. I'm on the I have the beta for my iPhone 15 Pro Max, so I'm eligible to get the AI features. However, because we are based in Australia, not all of the features are available. I even tried changing my language to US English from English Australia, and that didn't work. So my guess is that it's entirely location based.
Yeah.
Region. It'd be region locked. So Apple Intelligence, iOS 18.1, and I should rattle these offers. Well, iPad OS 18.1 and the unfortunate, not uniform Mac OS Sequoia 15.1. Get that up to 18.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just make it the same across the board. Like that's what they're clearly going for. And you know what? I reckon AMD and Intel should do the exact same thing with their stack of processor offerings. Their naming schemes are they give me nosebleeds.
They just go around the corner, right? They just go, well, I mean, Intel keeps counting up, but then they stopped at 14.
No, they changed it.
Now they're at 200. They went from 14 to 200. Oh, they went from 14,000 to 200.
Yeah, what is this, like a new WoW expansion where they just like take off zeros on the end?
Yeah, like GeForce will be like, they got the 50 series or the 5,000 series, and then 6,000, 7, 8, 9, and then after that they'll just reset like they did before.
Yeah, but they've been going since what, the 256? GeForce 256?
Yeah, but there was that, and then there was the GeForce 2, then there was the GeForce 3 initially, then they did a 4 and a 5, and then they did like the 600 series and the 500. Then they did the hundreds.
Yeah, and then there was the 720. No, 750.
Yeah, and then they got up to the hundreds, and they got up to 9, then they got up to like 1,000. So it was like, with the iconic 1080 Ti and the 1060, the probably two of the biggest GPUs of all time for gaming. And then they went for the 2,000, 3,000. Now we're in the 4,000. But like it's just they just go around in circles when it comes to naming. Yeah,
well, what's good is that Apple is, at least with their SoCs, like the M line is M1, M2, M3, M4. Now we're finally up to M4. I can't really speak much on the performance side, as I was saying earlier, but what I can talk about is the eligibility for Apple Intelligence, what it is so far. And for those that don't know, Apple is rolling out Apple Intelligence staggered in different regions, and not all of the features that was used in the marketing for the new iPhone 16 lineup and these MacBooks, they're not available. So if you go out and buy one of these brand new Apple products expecting to use this entire suite, you will be sadly disappointed. But so far we have 1, 2, 3, 4 main features, probably some other ones, smaller ones that I missed that I would say them quality of life features, those small little things that aren't like the massive attraction, but you're like, oh wow, that's really helpful. That's arguably better than the writing tools, like the entire feature. I haven't dove through those little things yet, but I did do brief overviews on each of the features, and what we are getting is
before you run through it, like what was interesting, you wrote that it requires substantial bandwidth, or that's what Apple said, substantial bandwidth in addition to the the NPU that's in these, whatever the iPhone 15 Plus or whatever, it starts with that one. So have they detailed exactly how much bandwidth it's going to use, or have you been able to track how much bandwidth it's using?
No, not yet. I would love to be able to benchmark the phone when it's performing one of these tasks, but I'm not sure how I would go about that. But what
you'd have to probably do it on the router side, like track like the device on the router and then just see how much bandwidth it's using.
But that wouldn't tell me how much hardware. That would tell me how much internet data it's going. Like how
that's
much
what I'm
it's
interested to know, like how much internet server, because the NPUs on these things aren't that powerful. So
no, but what I want to know is how much RAM is being used when a task is being carried out. Like say the cleanup tool or something like that. Because what I found when I was diving through all of the specs for all of the iPhones, is the cutoff point for Apple Intelligence, and it says, and Reese, throw this image up on. Oh, I didn't include the image. No. Oh no, I've got it at the bottom here. For the compatible devices. The lowest iPhone compatible with Apple Intelligence is the iPhone 15 Pro, and that chip uses. I'm pretty sure it's the A16. No, it is the A17 Pro chip, and that has 8 gig of RAM and 35 tops MPU. The A16 Bionic chip, which powered the 14 Pro, 14 Pro Max, 15 and 15 Plus, which is the lighter variant, has 6 gig of RAM. So RAM, I know from previous stories that artificial intelligence tasks require RAM because they are pretty much the AI is sitting within the RAM and then accessing the NPU.
Yeah, because it's the fastest way to access that sort of data, and it needs to keep a lot. That's why I like GPUs with like if you're just running like a desktop GPU that's got 8 gig of RAM versus one with 16 gig, even if it's like not as good for gaming, but like if you're running an AI workload, it means you can actually run a more complex large language model. than an 8 gig GPU, but just because it just requires a lot of memory.
Yeah, yep. And so that seems to be the cutoff point, and Apple has outlined that on its website. And you can see from like small interviews, like I was quoting, the head of machine learning and AI at Apple saying it needs substantial bandwidth, and I'm thinking more so that is what he means by that is the relationship between the RAM and the NPU itself. Because in theory you can, and he did say this during the interview in I think it was WWDC when all of like Apple Intelligence was unveiled. That you can run these AI tasks on lower spec hardware, but they are just not at what Apple considers its standard for performance of these tasks. So, you know, say if you're cleaning up an image, you're using the new enhanced photos app where you're removing a car from the background of an image, it might, instead of it being 15 seconds, it could be 30 seconds. Like, because say for example, the difference where it just becomes
too slow.
Hey?
There's a point where it becomes too slow to even bother with.
Yeah. And I totally get that. But yeah, that's an interesting point. And is entirely dependent on the compatibility of Apple Intelligence here, is that you will not be able to access any of these features if you have an iPhone that is below a iPhone 15 Pro, which is last year's iPhone. So you can call this planned obsolescence. I can see that, sure. Like, two things can be true at the same time. Like,
I think
the software does require substantial hardware, but you know, I would like to see benchmarks of how this would be an interesting test, right? Is if I got a iPhone 14 Pro and can perform the same tasks and did a side-by-side with the iPhone 15 Pro, how much more time does it take to clean up that image?
Yeah,
like, is it 5 seconds?
Yeah, I wonder if there's a way to
because if it's 5 seconds,
like jailbreak whatever, like an older phone to like, you know, force it to run those tasks. But like, I think with like the planned obsolescence stuff, I think when it comes to AI, it's unplanned, because like if you look at the PC side, like Intel started putting NPUs on their mobile processors, AMD did as well. They were doing it just because it's like, oh, we got to have that there. That's, you know, the industry's going AI. And then then it just, industry explodes. Everybody's pumping billions in. Microsoft decides that, okay, for Windows, we're going to push Copilot, and then it's going to have this sort of NPU. And then everything that AMD and Intel did up to that point with actual AI-powered CPUs was useless now, because the bar was just was raised so dramatically, so quickly, unexpectedly, that it's like, okay, so now our brand new CPU from 6 months ago is now no longer compatible with that. And then you've got it like with Apple as well. It's like, oh, well, we're catching up to...
in terms of TOPS performance, are you talking about the NPU specifically here?
But like TOPS performance, I think, like,
what was
they just were never planned. Like, it was like 12 or something like that. 15, 12, something 15.
Was it 15? Was it really that low?
Well, the new ones were like...
I thought it was sitting at 50 for the CPU.
Yeah, that's right. 45, 50, right. Yes, that's right. But like the chips, like 6 to 8 months or 9 months before that were only like 15 to 20. Same with like Intel, right?
Yeah, okay.
So like even with like Apple, they would have planned, they plan these generations years in advance, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they would have like saw like, okay, like 5 years ago, like, oh, we'll start putting NPUs in, maybe this sort of that, we allocate it, whatever you do.
Well,
and the same with Intel AMD.
They've been running an NPU on their iPhones for many, many generations.
They've just been forced now to upgrade them because all these now AI models that have been trained on these super complex systems that Apple has as well. They have billions on these powerful AI training and learning and models and stuff that they're creating for these apps. Is that now that they've got these models and they've got these like applications for them, it just requires a more powerful NPU, and like that wasn't something that was planned for really. It was kind of just like everybody's now just diving into it or playing catch up.
Well,
or
no
doing
one
whatever
really
they
saw
can.
the adoption of ChatGPT. Like, no one predicted the adoption of ChatGPT.
That's right.
ChatGPT, sorry.
Yeah. So they've had to
that was
kind of,
just insane.
yeah, exactly. And so now they're just having to ramp up. Like, to be honest, I think like with the planned obsolescence stuff, it's just going to like catch everyone by off guard. And I think it's going to be continuing. I think, 3 iPhone generations from now, Apple Intelligence will no longer be compatible with the 15 and 16 potentially, just because AI is accelerating at such an advanced pace that we could be seeing way more powerful MPUs and way more powerful AI models turn up maybe in just 2 years' time, because like, AI acceleration is so crazy now that it's like AI is helping to design the next generation of AI. And so, like it's just, and the exponential, like NVIDIA's like, compute performance is like Moore's law. If you look at traditional hardware cycles of like transistor shrinking and that leading to double the performance, is now 1,000 times, because AI can accelerate or generate or just, just make things out of thin air, essentially.
Yeah.
Can just
Pretty
create
much
stuff like 1,000 times faster. Like, like it's just unpredictable. And it's great that, we're at this point now, but like I foresee that AI hardware is just going to, you're going to have to, well, it's just going to leapfrog at a pace that's going to mean that like AI hardware now is going to feel old school.
Become obsolescence regardless.
Yeah, it's going to feel like ancient in like a few years' time potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the most consumer, I'm trying to phrase this properly here. The everyday person will interact with AI the most through their smartphone. And that's why I found it, I thought it was important that I continuously cover at least, I'm only one person, so Apple Intelligence. You've also got, of course, Gemini, and I'm sure so Samsung has one as well. Was it Bixby? But yeah, that's why I thought to do this big article, which is linked below for anyone that is interested.
I mean, Apple still has a huge chunk of the market share for iPhone, especially like in the US, right? They're the market leader.
In the US, yeah.
So Apple Intelligence is potentially regardless.
And this isn't just for the iPhone. Remember, this is across Macs. This is across iPads. This is
this will factor into the future of how the wider general public adopts or integrates AI into their day-to-day life. And it doesn't. It's not it's not a definitive statement on AI, right? This is still just Apple's version of it, like Apple's models. Apple's
well, they
what they're deciding
AI.
how to use it and stuff like that, and they're calling it Apple Intelligence, which is a very
so on brand.
Yeah, it's like perfect though, right? Because it abbreviates to AI, so it's like, why not?
But yeah, we should get through each of these features. So let's start off. Writing tools is a new feature designed to refine the language used by the user into different forms. So an example of that would be you typing out a message in iMessage, highlighting it, by double pressing on the entire body, and then in that above the dropper, there you go, a set of options come up, and one of them will be writing tools. This will, clicking on it will give you suggestions for making the highlighted text to change it into a different writing style, such as professional, funny, concise, friendly. Like that, you can do stuff like that.
That's cool because it's like tone.
Yeah, after I've gone through,
a lot of people struggle with tone as well.
Hey,
a lot of people struggle with tone, especially if English is not your native language.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
or even just in general, like being able, like that's actually a very clever approach. Is that it's not just like, hey, we're going to fix your spelling. It's like, spell checks have been in Microsoft Word since, even since I was in high school. So
yeah, true.
So
but yeah, speaking of spell check, it does have proofread, and as you can imagine, that involves grammatical errors, sentence structure issues, general improvements. And this is what I do like about that, about this feature, is if it detects any improvements, it provides the user a suggestion, and then it will also show you its its method for arriving at that suggestion. So it's not just like, here's how to improve. It's like, well, here's how to improve, but here's how I arrived at this.
Then it becomes a
proposed
tool
improvement.
in that case.
What was that? Sorry.
Then it becomes like a learning tool. Like you can learn
Yeah.
from it. Like if it's no longer just like, here's an alternate version, and you read it and you go like, oh yeah, I guess that's more professional or whatever, and you accept just blindly.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're interested, you can go like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense, and then you can adopt.
Yeah, well then you need
forward.
to use it less, which is good.
Yeah.
Also, something to save some time is the summarize feature, which when you highlight a body of text, click summarize, it can be converted into a digestible paragraph, bullet points, or even a table, which is really nice. So
that's very cool.
You can do that from web pages, you can do that from messages, whatever. So if you get like a crazy long paragraph and you want a too long don't read, highlight the entire paragraph, summarize, and it will spit out some footnotes for you, which is great. Siri overhaul, and this is the she's popping off.
Would you say this is one of the bigger updates?
Absolutely. This is how people are going to be This is how people are going to be using AI the most. I think people are going to be interacting with their device with voice much more frequently. Following this update,
you would say?
What was that? Sorry,
just using more natural language and just
engaging
definitely with it as more like a quote unquote person.
Yes, because Siri and any other AI kind of that's on the market right now really struggles with the inflections in people's voice. Especially with requests. So like, say if I started over some words, Siri in particular is a massive offender of this. Or if I'm thinking during my sentence, it will just completely cut out, or it'll search the thing before you're even finished. Or if you change your mind halfway through a sentence, you're like, hey, Siri, can you identify the closest chicken shop? Oh, actually, no, Chinese place. It's not capable of discerning that you have cancelled your request on the chicken shop and now want a Chinese. However, iOS 18.1 is doing involves a Siri overhaul, and it is deeply integrating Siri more into the iPhone. And this is why I believe, at least for my personal experience with my phone, I've already been trying to practice using, like, consciously going out of my way. Like, instead of going to the alarms, I'm now asking Siri to do that in preparation for this update, taking notes, all of that kind of stuff. That is what this is going to be designed for. So a big improvement, because the overhauled Siri isn't out in Australia right now. I can't actually run my own tests. It comes out in December here, which sucks. Okay. But from what I have seen online and researched myself, a big improvement is being able to fulfill a request even after purposefully stumbling over. I did stumbling over words. It's very interesting that voice is going to be coming into play, and I feel like a lot of people are using voice notes more as well. Like Anthony definitely is a proponent of it. I've been starting to use it more with some of my friends. They're using their voice notes back.
I'm still a fan of just traditional text.
But do you use dictation?
No, I'm very weird. Like, I don't even take notes.
You don't even use your thumbs on your phone, dude. That's bizarre.
Yeah, I know. I also don't take notes when I review things as well.
You text? Oh, well, neither do I. Besides,
that's unusual though. Like, a lot of people live by their notes and then they just turn their notes into a review. I kind of tend to just feel it. I take notes,
I suppose, when I'm doing like the positives and negatives, like, the pros and cons at the start of each of Tweetown's reviews.
Yeah.
Is that no? Is that
So
is
some
that
of
a
those I do,
note,
yeah.
though?
But like you know what I mean, well, like let's say because
I've already
read
identified the
hardware,
problem,
I review
or the negative, or the
games, and like
positive.
I know a lot of people have a notebook, and then they just jot down like thoughts like, oh, that was a cool moment. If it's like a game or whatever, like you take notes. Or if you're reviewing hardware, you're like, oh, okay, that one. Like outside of like benchmark numbers, I don't take notes. I just kind of just
No,
wing it.
no, neither do I. But you text like my mum does.
I use I don't. Well, here's the thing. I'm old school in that like I
You are
like
old school.
if I'm gonna chat, like you'll notice
hit
like
him with
if you get a
the
lot of messages, if you get a lot of I do that. I do the drawing, the words.
Yeah. Sorry for just the audio listeners. I was I
I
was
draw
pretty
the
much
words.
casting a spell with my finger.
Yeah.
I was like Leviosa.
I only exactly, and I only tend to text if when I'm on my phone or whatever, like when I have to or when I should be responding.
Do you use
and half the
phone
time I
link
just
on
ignore.
your PC?
Well, I just have the apps open. Like I have WhatsApp open on my PC, and it's all synced.
Oh,
that
right.
way. Like I
Okay,
don't,
yeah.
and Signal and whatever, and Messenger and stuff like that. I have all versions of that on my PC, so I don't. So I actually just like treat those like like it was ICQ or IRC chat or forums back in
Fair
the
enough.
late 90s.
You are old school. Jesus. All right, let's get back to iOS. Okay, yeah, Siri, I'll have more details on it. I'm sure there is stuff out there right now that you can have a look at with people playing around with it. It is being slowly rolled out. Each of these features, I should say, aren't available globally just yet, and they're being rolled out in stages. I'm not sure if Apple has specifically given dates for each region. In the press release that I got, luckily had Australia in December. I don't know when in December, but that's something to look forward to. Now this is, I think, another feature that I'm not sure if everyone is going to be using this, but I think some people will. And I think content creators in particular, or people that post a lot to social platforms, will use this feature. And this is the cleanup tool. And I found I actually had access to this one, which was pretty cool. Pretty much you take a photo.
This is like Google's Gemini stuff here on the Pixel, right? The Magic Eraser.
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of like Lens, or I can't remember what it's called on the Android side, actually.
Magic Eraser.
That's it. Yeah. Magic Eraser. Yeah. It's exactly the same. You select an object in the background of an image. It performs, from the testing that I've done, it performs the best with background objects, people, cars, a plane in the sky, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I figure it does a better job at those background objects and stuff because there's just less pixels for it to fill in. Well, stuff that's in the foreground and really like big in the image, it really does struggle, and it absolutely shits the bed with hands.
What is it with AI and hands? Like it just doesn't understand human anatomy.
AI can't work it out.
It looks at us and goes, "I don't understand how you work, flesh bag."
Yeah, it doesn't understand like the physics or the structure of hands.
Yeah, like it doesn't I know, because like the way that AI training works, like especially like if it's like an AI generated video of a person, whatever, you think, oh okay, it understands people, but no, it's just trained on videos of that, and it just recognizes the shape and the movement of the shapes. It doesn't factor in your bone structure, your mass, your physiology, or the physics associated
or your age
with you. But like I think AI is starting to. That's what they're starting to train it on. So
become more sophisticated. Yeah,
as it becomes more sophisticated. But like it's kind of like smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. In the article that's linked below, I have a side-by-side comparison of the cleanup tool being used to remove a croissant from my lovely girlfriend's hand, and absolutely making her look like a mess. With the big blur. But then in the video below, it shows that it can perfectly remove a person from the background of an image. And it's very impressive. Like just watching it go, like the simple interaction is you pull up your photo, hit edit, go to the cleanup tool, just identify the object that you want to remove slightly, just move your finger over the top of it, color it in, and then just wait a sec. Good. Boom.
Yeah.
Gone.
That's great. I mean, and like the photo stuff that you put in there as well, like being able to go, show me all the food I ate in Taiwan, or show me all of this, which is similar to the Microsoft Copilot Plus feature, where you can just say, hey, show me everything from my trip and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, semantic search.
Every time I was with X person or whatever, as long as it knows that person, then it'll be like, okay, here's all your photos with that person. So you can, so it's like a really good sorting and I guess a way to categorize photos, or in a way that leaves it where you don't have to worry about anything. You can just leave them. You don't, whereas for me,
you don't have
it's
to
like I have to
organize them
find
manually.
something. I just scroll through the timeline to be like, oh, when was that?
Yeah, that's a nightmare. We also have priority features in this iOS update, which is one of them is priority messages. And this is in the Mail app. And pretty much what this is Apple Intelligence will be reading your mail to determine what it
isn't that a federal crime in the US?
What was that, sorry?
That's a federal crime in the US, is like opening somebody's mail.
Electronic mail? Is that?
Or physical mail, I think it's like a crime.
Yeah, physical mail, yeah.
Oh,
but I mean, same thing, right?
Yeah. Sue them.
This is a weird thought, but I just realized that your email account is your digital letterbox.
You just realized that?
But
which is why we call it junk mail.
Email account, if you hack someone's email, what was that, sorry?
It's called junk mail because junk mail used to be, well, it probably still is, like a real physical thing where you get like.
Yeah, we get it. Yeah, it's annoying.
Yeah.
I throw it out. But
that's why it's called junk mail and for email as well. That's why it's called.
Yeah,
email.
but hacking someone's email account, you're hacking their letterbox.
Yes, their mailbox. It's called a mailbox. You're just realizing that.
I don't know why I just put them two together. That's so strange. Anyway, the Mail app will have priority messages. Apple Intelligence will sift through all of your mail and determine what is the most important, and then present that at the top in a nice little section for you. Additionally, summaries will be generated for mail without even having to open it, which is kind of nice. And those summaries will happen for mail that has a particularly long thread. As someone that gets a ton of digital mail, it is it looks like an incredible feature that I think Google needs to adopt immediately. Because I don't use the Mail app. And we've also got notification summaries. This is kind of nice, and I think it's going to be a feature that is going to be very mainstream. At least is going to be talked about mainstream, because I think most people are in group chats. I don't think I've ever run into, or at least people that are in my friends group. Everyone's in a group chat, whether it's like everyone multiple that I know, or they're in some other ones. Most people are in multiple. But what does suck is if
the boys, the girls.
Yeah, it's crazy. If I don't know, you go to see a movie, you come out of the movie, and there's like 400 messages in the group chat, and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know I have to read like 500 words when I get home.
I just don't bother.
Yeah, you don't bother. Yeah, if it's important, someone will direct message you.
Yeah.
But notification summaries will save people time in this regard. It will provide a short summary of long or stacked notifications right on the device's lock screen. And this will work for group chat notification spam. So you'll get a summary of all of the most likely nonsense that is being discussed in the group chat. That's kind of nice. Users can now record, transcribe, and summarize audio in the Notes and Phones app, which is really cool. I was able to test this out. And when you in a call with someone in the phone app, so I'm guessing this won't work if you're calling from, say, Messenger or WhatsApp. But if you call from the Apple's inbuilt phone app, you can click record call, and it'll just play a weird audio voice that says this call is being recorded.
Yep.
And then as the recording is happening, it's transcribing it into the Notes app, which is really cool. Or that happens after you've clicked save on the recording. It'll give you the audio file and then a summary of what was discussed during the phone call, which was really nice. And I want an improvement to this feature. I want to be able to just transcribe the call without notifying someone that it's being recorded. I don't want the full audio recording. I don't want that.
Awesome. It's like outside of like a phone call, like whether it's like, you know, you're in a meeting or a presentation or whatever it is, especially for us, like, you know, a lot of media is media related things. But like, not only does it give you a summary, but like it's a summary with quotes. Imagine that. Like it just like, you've got like a 30-minute presentation or a 30-minute interview that you're doing with somebody or a discussion that you're having with somebody. And then not only do you get a summary of everything that was discussed, but then like under all of the main points, you get like these pull quotes that the AI decides are like, oh, these are the best quotes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It almost becomes like a press release for your discussion or whatever you've got. And then you can, how good would that be?
Oh man, imagine for the keynotes or the...
Yeah, that would make our lives
Oh, it would be so good. But yeah, that is about it. There is going to be more features rolled out in December globally. And then you've also got those region unlocks. Apple Intelligence will become available. Like it's currently only, as of recording, it's currently only available in US English. And it will be arriving in other languages in December. So if you want more specific details, please go down to the description below. The article is in there along with everything else that we're about to talk about. But yeah, that is about it. Also, I am very excited for Apple Intelligence, but there is something that Apple has done that has really bothered me, and I think it's hilarious. I think they are so dumb to do this. This was such a missed opportunity. And of course, I'm talking about probably Apple's funniest product in a while, in recent memory, the Magic Mouse. The Magic Mouse is hilarious. It's hilarious that it's a product. It's hilarious how much Apple squirm when they are asked about it. That's fun. Did you watch that? No. There is a lot of, I'm not sure about a lot, but I saw MKBHD ask about the Magic Mouse to Tim Cook, and he was like, yeah, ooh. Like he just completely deflected the question. You know, he's like, well, the Magic Mouse, you know, Apple is really committed to, you know, our ergonomic products. It's like just real general corporate speak. But
it's not like, I don't even think the design is that ergonomic.
Oh, what makes you say that?
The fact that it's just like a flat, looks like a UFO.
Oh, because it's a quarter of what a normal mouse is in terms of mass.
Yeah, but it's and I've always found Apple's mice like strange, like, you know, like even back in the days of like the Mac, like just one click, just weird, like, you know,
no, it's
very basic
poor
shapes and designs. It's like, man, I want scroll wheels, I want right clicks, I want buttons on the side, I want grip tape.
No, this is one of the dumbest products that they have ever made, in my opinion.
I want the USB port not to be where it is.
Okay, and that is the main issue. So this Magic Mouse, this design has been the same since the Magic Mouse 2. This is the 3rd generation Magic Mouse, and the Magic Mouse 2 has two critical flaws. one, it's marketed as an ergonomic mouse, but has no ergonomics at all. It actually hurts my hand to use this mouse.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, ergonomic doesn't mean what it used to. Like ergonomic mice, like are just like they just don't look stylish. Like a real
because you got to hold them like a puck. Like,
yeah. Like those proper like the most ergonomic ones are just A lot of them are like the symmetrical design, which is popular amongst PC gamers, isn't really ergonomic because it's symmetrical. It just supports multiple grip styles or things like that. So it's fine to use, but it's not the most ergonomic design.
Oh, it's more universal. Yeah.
Whereas then you go to like other ones and they
Yeah, I don't think there's anything universal about the Magic Mouse besides the fact that people would, God, I hope they agree. I really do. That the charging port located on the base of the mouse is the dumbest location you could have put a charging port. And this again has been a problem since 2015.
Because they don't want you to see it, I think is the reason why, right?
Oh, but do they also not want me to be able to use the mouse when it's charging?
Yeah, that's the byproduct. But why is also the black one in Australian $20 more than the white one?
I don't know. I can only think of jokes I can't say on the podcast.
Because it's cooler. Because white is like just not cool. Can't dance. Can't do anything.
No, you're right. It is cooler. Yeah, I own the white one, and it is rough.
Yeah,
it's very rude. But yes, the charging port located on the base of the mouse is
like, it doesn't make any sense. Like
ridiculous.
So you have to just flip it upside down and plug it in. So it's gonna look so out of place when you're charging it, right? So when you're using
That's not the problem. You can't use it when it's being charged.
Yeah, but like you can't even position it where it doesn't look stupid, like where it's upside down with a cable coming out, or on its side with a cable like that. It just
or you gotta hang it over the desk, like the photo. Reese, throw this image up on there.
You hang it over the desk. Is that what people do?
That's what they have to do, so it doesn't look insane. This is a problem that's 9 years old.
There's no wireless charging for it either, is there?
No magnet. No, there's no MagSafe. This is why Apple has dropped the ball here. They missed this opportunity to improve a product that has been.
And at 99 grams, it's lightweight, but it's not that light compared to some PC games.
Yeah, because it's aluminium. It's metal.
I mean, like when it's winter, it's going to make your hand cold. I don't like that.
Yeah, I mean it won't, because when you hold it, none of the middle section of your hand
touches
here,
your hand. Yeah, you have to just like using like the mouse like this, like you're washing or like wiping down your table.
Yeah, it's crazy. Look, it's dumb. It's silly. Apple shouldn't have done it. And this is the third generation. They recently announced with the new lineup of M4 Max. And all this entire new lineup of accessories are just refreshes with USB-C. I
mean, it's probably just it just means that people are going to get like Logitech stuff right for Mac instead of the official stuff. It's like, why would you bother?
Absolutely. But yeah, that's about it from Apple. As we predicted last week, they had a big announcement, but we should keep it to the hardware and move it along because that went for way longer than anticipated. Let's talk about Intel. Core Ultra CPUs are here. What do we think?
Yes, they're here. The Core Ultra 200 series, which is their 15th gen desktop processors on a new, more efficient process node, but also it uses the tile design that we've seen in the mobile space with Meteor Lake and Lunar Lake, which means you've got not only have you got P cores and E cores, which is something that Intel's done for a while. You've got a GPU tile, you've got a SoC tile, and you've got a compute tile. So its actual layout of the CPU is more like their mobile or laptop CPUs than it is their desktop CPUs. But that being said, the Intel Core Ultra 9 285K is essentially their next gen flagship. So it's this. If it was using the traditional naming methods, it would be the 15900K. And our review for that it has gone live. When we recorded last week, we kind of recorded as it was launching, so we didn't get quite to it. But basically, the general consensus is that yes, it is an improvement when it comes to efficiency. But like when you're talking about the 14th gen CPUs drawing hundreds and hundreds of watts to deliver the performance that they did, that's really the bare minimum, right? Like if it wasn't more efficient, you would be scratching your head going, what is going on?
Yeah.
So yes, so there are like gains when it comes to multi-threaded performance and some, non-gaming workloads. It seems to be okay, pretty good. However, when it comes to gaming, it's a bit of a mixed bag. So it even falls behind the 14900K with a previous gen flagship when it comes to like certain productivity workloads. Like in our review, with 7-zip file compression test, it's actually slower than the 14900K. And when it comes to gaming, it's actually slower than the 14900K. It's slower than pretty much every Zen 5 CPU that's launched.
Wow.
Definitely slower than the 7800X3D, which is the current gaming champ, and that's like benchmarking at 1080p, where the CPU is definitely doing a lot more at that resolution. So it's kind of like if you're looking to upgrade or you're going to get in like an Intel CPU, like the 14900K is potentially a better option. But like the only thing is that what surprised me with the review is that the power consumption isn't that great.
Yeah, I'm looking at that chart right now. A peak reading of 225 watts.
Yeah, compared to 253 for the 14900K, it's like
that's
great.
Nothing.
But like the 7950X is 217. The 9950X is 200.
Look at the 7800X 3D.
Yeah, 83. It's a low power.
83.
Yeah. When it comes to like efficiency for gaming, like it's just not there with their new Ultra series. And the only place where it actually is good and Intel has been good is in with the idle CPU power usage. So we can see that AMD always has this issue. They have this issue with GPUs as well, right? So like Radeon GPUs idle at a much higher power than GeForce GPUs. The 40 series GPUs go down to really low. And it seems the same thing with the power consumption for CPUs. Intel CPUs, like their flagship idles at 9 watts, whereas the 9950X idles at 41. So it's 4 times. That's something where Chris, who did our review, basically pointed out that like AMD needs to catch up when it comes to that. Temperature wise, it's fine. Obviously, less power means it runs a bit cooler than the previous gen flagship, and the review also says, and other reviews have as well, is that the gaming performance is a little bit strange. Is that in some games it seems to do well, others it doesn't, others it falls way behind. Even some reviews are saying that it's slower than the 13900K. What? 2 generations. And how are you a new flagship that's slower than a CPU from 2 generations ago? It doesn't make sense. A lot of people are speculating that it could be an issue with, thread scheduling, Windows. Like it's the same situation that we saw with the Zen 5 launch. Could require BIOS
all
updates.
These tests on the latest version of Windows. What is it? The 24H2?
I believe so. Yeah. But like it doesn't, like even so, like that doesn't mean all that much, because some people are finding that even with Zen 5, some people said yes, it improved things. Other people said no, it doesn't. Windows, like I don't know, man. Like it seems that it's just not great for. It's the only option we have, really. I mean, we're not going to be running Linux systems for gaming, but it's the only kind of option you have at the moment. But like and it's just got issues. So like it's a bit of a disappointing launch.
Well, we know what we're going to be putting in the new systems now. Yeah,
so we've got the 9800X3D, and early benchmarks for that are showing that it's going to be pretty fantastic all-round GPU. And even if it's only like
CPU.
10% CPU, sorry, yep. Yeah, even if it's only like 10% faster in some games or whatever the case is, it's going to be much better for...
Yeah, it's 20% faster than Intel.
Yeah. And yeah, that's right. And it's going to be better for like general workload performance. So like even if you're just video editing on those the next gen 3D chips, it's going to be dramatically better than the the current or the Zen 4 versions.
Efficiency
is up there, but they're going to be drawing more power. And I think that's just to boost their performance because
I'm okay with them drawing more power if they get those idle numbers down, because that's very interesting. That Intel's chips, they idle at like 5 to 4, like 4 watts, like tiny. Like that's pretty much what I charged this headset with. That's impressive.
I put in my reviews of like the RDNA 3 versus the 40 series GPUs. Like the 40 series GPUs, like they idle down to like 20 watts, 15 watts or something like that. But the 4090 idles like 15 watts or something.
That's so crazy.
Whereas like the 7900 XTX, they fixed it in like a patch, but it didn't improve that much. But for like its first year, it was idling at like, you know, something like 50, 60, 70 watts. Idle.
It's bonkers.
You know, it's like, you know, 5-10 times. Yeah, it just seems to be like an AMD issue. Yeah, keeping it on the AMD train, I believe, which is what we are doing. AMD posted their latest revenue, and surprise, surprise, you know, data center and you know, all that sort of stuff is up. So, you know, you've got AI boom leading AMD to like, you know, 18% year over year growth for Q3 2024. And even the client side, which includes Zen 5, is like up a bit. But where AMD is absolutely struggling is its gaming segment. So the gaming segment was down 69% compared to last year at the same time. And it was down last year too, right? So like, let's not think that like a year ago, Radeon wasn't like a big player in the PC GPU space. But that also includes Xbox and PlayStation as well. So like console sales are down. AMD don't make a lot of money off that to begin with. So basically their gaming segment is not in the red, but its margins are 2% in terms of income or revenue, or in terms of money. That's 2%. So, you know, like out of the 462 million, the income of 276 million, 2% of that was actual profit, or that's the margin.
Can I ask a quick question before you get into the nitty-gritty of that? What happens, and I genuinely don't know the answer to this, what happens if NVIDIA grows so large that they own 98%?
I reckon they're already at 90%. But the thing is, once you've got 90%, you've got the monopoly, right? Like,
yeah, that's my follow-up to that is, but what if the Radeon team just closes? Like, AMD's like, you know what? Don't worry about it. We're not winning this race at all. It's 2%. We may as well take the tech here and redeploy it to another department where it's better off suited. They go enterprise or whatever. Let's just say. What happens to NVIDIA then? Does the SEC get involved now?
Well, potentially, but then like it's not really their, like, you know, it's not like they orchestrated it, obviously, but like, you know, it's obviously in their favor. But like AMD has failed to capture the PC gaming audience, and there's been multiple steps behind, which leads into our next story about like AMD opening up about RDNA 4. So basically what they're doing, like their money is in AI, right? So like it was a couple of months ago where they announced that RDNA and CDNA or whatever it is, like the GPU architecture for their data centers is now going to be the same thing. So it's going to be like the same thing for like for client as well as AI. And then we're seeing that architecture now is in like APUs and CPUs. So like I think what could potentially happen, like let's say it goes into the red, like their Radeon business or the gaming business, they decide not to develop any more discrete graphics cards outside of potentially deals that they have with Sony and Microsoft for consoles, and that's it. And they pull out of the PC space because they can save money and they're no longer in the red for that, which could happen. Yeah. But they're not going to get out of like GPU business entirely, because GPUs is what drives AI acceleration.
They've been working on this tech for a long time.
Yeah. You got AI acceleration, which is what driving their revenue at the moment. Their growth is in Instinct data center GPUs that are used for AI, and their Epic data center CPUs. So they've got like a full product stack which NVIDIA doesn't have, which they can have CPUs and GPUs. And we've seen in the mobile space with the new Ryzen AI CPUs for notebooks, they include RDNA graphics. I think them, like when they said, oh, we're skipping out on flagship GPUs next generation, so that we're not going to have like a 4090 equivalent or a 5090 equivalent, will probably the norm going forward, because they'll just focus on the mobile sector, on the mainstream sector, and then when it comes to high end, just purely data center.
Yeah,
and which could be which is unfortunate if that is the case, because
well, it's unfortunate for consumers.
The gaming segment revenue is down big. And a lot of that comes down to like maybe the time of year as well. Like there's less people buying new GPUs now, as well as we're at the tail end of a GPU cycle too, when it comes to like desktop and mobile and stuff like that. And RDNA 3 has been kind of a flop, especially in the mobile space. There's basically no real there's like they got 2 or 3 options there. And I mean, put it this way, like if you're in Australia or you're in Asia, you would struggle to go into any PC store and find a laptop, like a brand new laptop that you want to buy that has a discrete Radeon GPU in it.
Oh, definitely, yeah, absolutely. They're all GeForce laptops.
And if they're Ryzen, they're going to be the integrated GPUs with RDNA GPUs, like with the Ryzen AI chips, which are pretty good. Actually, really, really good. So what does this mean? Well, like in a follow-up financial earnings call, AMD's CEO Lisa Su, answered a question about like the gaming revenue and talked about like what's on the cards. And what's on the cards is that she has confirmed that RDNA 4 products are launching in early 2025, which is based on all the rumors we've been hearing that NVIDIA and AMD are going to be at CES. Early 2025 is when they're going to launch their next gen GPUs. But she also confirmed some very specific things. Obviously, generally speaking, right? She didn't bust out like numbers or things like that. She said that she's confirmed that it's going to have a strong increase in gaming performance, which means a gen-on-gen upgrade that's going to be big, right? Which is what you want and what you kind of expect. But she's also confirmed that RDNA 4 delivers significantly higher ray tracing performance and adds new AI capabilities. Now, when people throw out the word AI everywhere, it just means whatever. Like it's like, okay, AI. But if you're specifically talking about GPUs and you say new AI capabilities, what does that mean? Well, what is AI currently used for in gaming outside of Radeon, even Intel's doing it, is, upscaling, DLSS, frame generation, ray reconstruction, like AI characters in games are going to start popping up. So they're confirming that, yes, like that there's going to be new AI capabilities. And also the significantly higher ray tracing performance is a bold word to use. Like if you use the word significant, like it means something pretty big. Now, obviously, when the PS5 Pro was announced, Sony touted the same thing. They said 2 to 3 times the ray tracing performance, which is their version of saying significant increase to ray tracing performance for the PS5 Pro. In a follow-up interview with the PS5 Pro's lead architect, or Sony's Mark Cerny, I believe his name is, he confirmed that was because it had next-gen AMD hardware in there, and that they worked with AMD to develop that next-gen ray tracing hardware, which basically means that RDNA 4 and the PS5 Pro are going to share similar ray tracing architecture, which is good news for AMD, because AMD has always fallen behind NVIDIA when it comes to ray tracing performance. And when it comes to the AI features, I noticed so they've kind of like, it's kind of weird is that like, this is what people aren't really reporting on. So AMD's GPU Open team, which is basically just like their coders, right? They work on RDNA technology, Radeon graphics technology. They posted an article pretty much a day before or the same day as their financial report. And it's basically called neural sampling, super sampling, and denoising for real-time path tracing. It's a very technical article, but it basically confirms three things: that AMD is working on their version of DLSS 3.5 reconstruction. That's the technology that NVIDIA has or introduced, which dramatically improves ray tracing visual quality. You turn it on in Cyberpunk and Star Wars Outlaws, Alan Wake 2, and things like reflections and the lighting, they just look way more detailed. It's kind of like an RTX off and on moment for ray tracing on its own, which means that like right now, ray tracing not only runs faster on GeForce, it looks significantly better on GeForce. So AMD isn't sitting there doing nothing. I was kind of expecting at some point they have to do their own version of it. You know, technically it's a denoiser, and how all that works in terms of rendering is very mathematical. You don't really need to know how it kind of works. It just basically means that when you do your ray tracing pass and trace your lighting and then you render an image, even like when you do it on, when you're making like a CG, you know, Pixar animation, whatever, like, you know, something sort of scene, like what happens is like you get an image and it's just super noisy, and then it has to be a denoiser that basically removes the noise. It's almost like a film grain that's over everything when you generate like a super highly detailed digital image.
What is it in photography? It's like the ISO is overblown and it's got that, it's the lens is too far open. It's letting in too much light when it creates that like staticky effect.
That's exactly what it is, because with ray tracing, that's exactly what it is. And then like the way that you fix it now, or the way that you solve that problem now, or like the way you denoise now, is basically how you would do it for film and photography. It's basically like human-made like algorithms or ways to do that, and that's kind of like how they've been done, and that's how it was done for ray tracing, even in PC games up until last year. NVIDIA announced ray reconstruction was using AI to do all of the denoising, and not only could AI denoise, it could improve, it could figure out what the original intention almost was of what that ray tracing should look like at its most ideal situation. So it cleaned up the image and boosted the image quality. And NVIDIA said that they trained it on an AI model that was
six times the
size of just regular DLSS and frame generation. So it's like it's just it seemed a seemingly small thing, but it was like it's a game changer, right? So
I imagine it's like anti-aliasing.
That's
right.
Say
it's like a frame, and for those that don't know, AA is definitely way more complicated than how I'm about to explain it. But a very rudimentary, in a nutshell, explanation is if you have AA, let's just say times 2, or even AA on, it'll take one frame. And pretty much the GPU will render that frame again, and for all intents and purposes, stick those two frames together, and then remove any jaggies, any screen tearing, etc., etc. Is that pretty much it?
It's basically, it's like, and
then
like
you can go 4 times, it goes over the frame 4 times.
8 times, 16 times,
etc. And the way I'm imagining this denoiser is if there is a frame with lights and there is noise, the AI comes in, goes over the frame, detects any of the noise, cleans it up.
It's basically part of the ray tracing rendering pipeline. Yeah. So it's part of that. So it happens at the very end. So like the image is denoised. Like it's insane the amount of stuff that goes into just rendering a single frame of a game. Yeah. Right.
And then making that cohesive with 144 frames per second, or
exactly,
like for freaks like me that want to get up to 240. That is all very interesting. I'm excited to see what AMD are cooking up, and as you said, it feels like they have to do
they kind of had to do it, but they like the two quotes that I find super interesting that Radeon gamers and AMD gamers, especially the ones that are just like AMD super fans, and so because they're AMD super fans, they're kind of like, ray tracing, I don't need it, I don't like it, I don't want it, the performance hit's too big, etc., 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 blah 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 blah. It's like, you don't want your game to look better, okay, fine, but like this is what AMD.
And now they're all for it. Now that AMD's
announced
they
will come around, because AMD's
so they're fair weather fans.
Is basically saying, this is the quote, we're moving towards real-time path tracing on RDNA GPUs. path tracing is what you see in Cyberpunk, Alan Wake, and Portal with RTX, Half-Life 2 RTX Remix. It requires DLSS, requires all those, requires 4 bits of AI technology just to be playable. So that's what they're moving towards, and highly optimized performance for real-time path tracing at 4K. So it not only wants path tracing on Radeon GPUs, it wants highly optimized performance, which means 60 plus FPS at 4K. And the way you do that is how this very technical article throws in. It basically says you do it AI-based upscaling, which means replacing FSR, so you've got better image quality. You've got AI-based denoising, so the ray tracing and path tracing looks a lot better and crisper and cleaner. And then you've got frame generation to boost performance, which AMD has hinted at that will become AI-based going forward as well. So it just means that will we see all of this with the next-gen Radeon GPUs in January at CES? I hope so.
I hope so
we
too.
may not see all of it, but we definitely will hear about how its AI hardware is going to dramatically improve AI upscaling. And my prediction is what I predicted like a couple of weeks ago, is that Sony's PSSR AI upscaler, which everybody is raving about, and for good reason, because it's a dramatic improvement over FSR at lower resolutions, is that AMD's FSR 4 will be at CES and it'll be suspiciously identical or pretty much the same thing as PSSR for PC.
That makes perfect sense. I think that is a incredible bet. And if anyone has a betting line for that, please let us both know. And what the odds are. Oh, for research purposes, of course.
Yeah.
That was obviously a joke. But we are very excited to see the side-by-side tests, like from Digital Foundry. I'm sure they're going to line up DLSS, the new FSR, and PSSR all in the same title. And then I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised at the results.
Yeah, it's so the problem is that FSR is so far from DLSS in terms of image quality when you're upscaling from a lower resolution that it's not really in the same. It's like you wouldn't consider like the same sort of thing. Whereas PSSR is so close to DLSS in terms of image quality. DLSS is still superior, but it's close enough that it's comparable, right? It's like a comparable technology. Whereas FSR is kind of like not really an alternative. It's like it's only good when you're upscaling at 4K from 1440p or 1600p or whatever the case is in an ultra quality setting, which will buy you extra performance. But at that point, it's got like so much pixel data to work with that it's just like, it will be hard. You'd be hard pressed to mess that up.
Yeah. That is very interesting from AMD. I hope you are right that we do see this new tech at CES. I suppose we can't really confirm 100% if we will be attending, but it appears
we are
far
trying to be there.
Yes,
because it almost feels like
we are trying to be there, and it looks good. It's looking likely. It's looking likely. So you'll get some on the ground coverage in early January next year from all the exciting stuff coming out of CES. But let's keep it moving along. We need to smash through some of these stories to make time. I'm just going to quickly talk about Concord here. It's one of my favorite games. It's one of your favorite games of all time. It's, I think, one of the most popular games ever. In terms of being known for the biggest video game flop of all time. I actually wrote that back in there.
Yeah.
But yes, Concord is Sony's biggest flop of all time. And that should not be understated because it could have cost as much as $400 million to develop. We know it cost at least $200 million. So we are talking not.
It sold nothing, but it sold essentially nothing, and nobody played it really. Which is why it's such.
It made $0.
Yeah, there was granted there was no marketing, which makes you think or at least realize that Sony knew it had a dud on its hand. Obviously not a massive one. So they didn't believe in it like in the lead up to launch, but obviously they pumped a lot of money into it, so they believed in it at some point. But yeah, like it's hard to, like, I don't think we're going to see a flop at this size or scale for a while, if ever again.
Definitely.
Because it was dead on arrival, like just completely dead. Like it had an open beta where nobody played it. Like and those that actually played it, like said the gunplay felt pretty good, and it was kind of fun, but it was just like a generic hero shooter, really. But it just did
hero
not,
arena shooter. It's like this was a like Overwatch 2 competitor, maybe by extension Valorant as well. I'm not sure what they were going for here, but whatever it was, it did not work and has caused at least a $200 million hole in Sony's wallet. So, as we have outlined on the show in the previous episodes, I was saying that Sony is put in a position here where they have to decide what they do with Concord, because it didn't reach critical mass in terms of player base. It was literally had to be pulled down from clients, Steam, etc., because there wasn't enough players to sustain it. So now they have to decide, do we pour more money into the development to convert what was a $40 game, implement a business model that is free to play and re-release, or permanently shut down the game. Now, Firewalk Studios, the developers of Concord, I think to absolutely no one's surprise, have been disbanded or fired from Sony, and this news comes from Sony's CEO, Sony Interactive Entertainment CEO Herman Holst, who said Firewalk Studios has decided, Firewalk Studios has been fired and let go, and Concord has been permanently sunsetted. They've decided to permanently sunset the game. I honestly thought they were going to go the free-to-play route, but it seems that your bet paid off here.
I said, like, I predicted that it would just be quietly buried, right? Like that we probably won't hear about it for a while, and then it'll just be like a footnote, like, oh yeah, that's no longer a thing. But I think because I didn't factor in that if in order to do that, you have to like basically get rid of a studio that's 200 people or whatever it is. Like you have to fire and close a massive studio like Firewalk, and so it kind of has to be public. But like my reason for that was that it's just because of just the failure that it was, is that the name
it's
Concord
embarrassing.
It's like it's just tainted, right? That like there's just no way you can, even as a free, it can never be as much of a success as it was a failure. You know what I mean? Like you could never reach the inverse of that, because it's catastrophic, right? It's like there's no recovery if you cannot surpass where it ended up. Like whereas Cyberpunk 2077, games that came out that were broken at launch, No Man's Sky, it's like, okay, that's bad. But the promise of the game, we could get it to, like they weren't, like, they were still like big sellers, heaps of people playing in the social conscious. Whereas this is just like such a failure that there's just no way to recover.
Yeah, so the fate of Concord has now been sealed. It is going to be shelved. I don't know if we will ever see it again. Judging by this, we won't. I think you're right. I think it's dead and gone now.
What do you think we're going to see that secret mode, that what is it, the
Secret Wars
anthology series? Yeah, Secret Wars, the anthology series. That's every episode's a different video game. And there's apparently one that's based on Concord. Do you think
it is? I'm so excited for it. It's it's already my favorite. I don't
think they're going to release it. I think the season will come out without that episode.
Oh, that might cost Sony some money. That smells like money.
No. Like I think that already the money's being done. Like I don't think that they even want that. They just want it to be over.
Yeah, but if the developer, if the people that are making the show paid Sony licensing fees to use the Concord characters, and now Sony are like, well, Concord doesn't exist, can you not post that episode? They're going to be like, well, can you give us the money back at least?
Yeah, they would. Yeah, like just to be one big write-off. Yeah, they would have paid for it and then just be like, don't release it. Like, okay.
Yeah, give me the money back and we won't release it.
I mean, like if Sony was going to allow one of their IPs to be used by somebody, right? Or even like, like the
Amazon, yeah.
even HBO or whatever is making a show. If Sony decides that they want something to happen either in the story or with the production team or with how it's aired or marketed, they would have that written into their agreement that they can pull the plug at any point.
Yeah, true.
It's their IP. They're not going to be just like,
yeah,
you can license it. It's not like, I don't think it's a license. It's like an agreement where you can use it under our conditions.
Yeah.
But obviously, you get great
that.
collaboration. Like, the Last of Us show is great because they worked with great people. HBO, you still have that. It's not like they dictated thing, but like, they're going to have a fail safe in place. Like if they need to pull the plug, they can.
Do you know who doesn't have a fail safe in place?
Who's that?
Gamers. we have no protection whatsoever on what we like out there, and I have a personal problem with the US Copyright Office. You should see my sent folder in my email. It is aggressive what the things that I've said to the US Copyright Office. No, I haven't sent them anything, but I really should, because I find, and I know you don't like this either, this hurts. This hurts us gamers, or at least gamers that care about preserving the history of the hobby that they love, and that is, of course, video games. So we have reached a disappointing ending on a 3-year push by the Video Game History Foundation, along with the Software Preservation Network, to get a exemption from the US Copyright Office on DMCA takedowns in order for them to build online libraries and archives of video games that are no longer being printed. They have been denied. And just for explanation's sake, these libraries and archives were going to be used for research purposes, for historians to go back, play the game, The Legend of Zelda, The Breath of the Wild, 20 years from now.
But it's not even those. Like, it's like games, like it's like I said in the piece, that 87% of all video game releases in the US before 2010 are now out of print.
That's crazy.
You can no longer buy them. 87%.
87%. So all of those games that are now out of print, I don't think they're just going, like, of course there's going to be a percentage that do disappear and everyone is going to forget about them, or it's but I think at the very least it's going to become unnecessarily difficult for researchers and historians, not to mention just general consumers, to access games that are no longer out of print. I think this is such a disappointing ending, and I would like to argue from the standpoint of the researchers and the historians, I think that is the strongest way to argue this case, is not necessarily from a consumer standpoint, like a fan of games, is like, I think arguing from we need a online library and an archive of video games because they're inherently software based. Like we can't make a physical library of video games like that. I suppose you could if you've got all of the hard copies, but then again, like not every game is printed. So,
That's right. Yeah. And there should be physical preservation, but also because video games are an interactive medium, digital preservation makes
perfect
when
sense.
it comes to media, right? Like even like it's the same thing happened with like the Internet Archive creating like a revolutionary lending library for books. Because the concept of a library, which is how they're describing this, is not illegal. But for some reason, publishers and people with power, companies like the people that make the games and make the hardware that people play the games on, have decided that any form of digital recreation of something or emulation or ROMs, the technical terms, is just right off the bat illegal and copyright infringement and whatever else. And it doesn't matter how it works, whether it's a book or a video game now, it just means it cannot be online or it cannot be digital, which is
I think it's such an oversight.
It's a ridiculous argument because, like, why wouldn't it be digital? Because that's the preservation right there.
Yeah, and here's their reasoning. This is what really got me. So what happened? The new ruling has cited the Entertainment Software Associations and other industry lobby groups' belief that there would be, this is a quote right now, quote, significant risk that preserved video games would be used for recreational purposes, end quote. That was a part of their reasoning to reach this conclusion. They were worried that video games were going to be too much fun. As opposed to what?
But like what do you think's happening? Like if it's a library for you to be able to access things that have been preserved for history and go, oh, look at this. This is something that people played in 1986. And this was considered, the whatever of its day. Like, the Call of Duty of its day or whatever. And you play it and you go, oh, the odds are nobody's going to be having fun, right? Because
no, don't you dare have fun with that.
But a lot of these old games have aged very, very badly. Let's be honest, right? Like
you say they're not fun anyway.
Like there's a lot of them that aren't, and a lot of them are just like out of curiosity you want to see them, but they should be preserved regardless. And also
that is
as well,
part of the preservation of the thing. Like imagine, I'm always
they just don't want
comparing
people to have access
this decision to books or to art. Like imagine preserving like I don't know the Mona Lisa, and you can't have fun looking at it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
I know what you mean.
What did
like,
they?
You can. No. Basically, it's like saying you can go to an art gallery, but we don't want you to appreciate the art.
Yeah, you don't appreciate. Don't
do
the thing that the art is invoking.
You can look at it, but don't look at it.
Like what the? I don't understand. Significant risk that preserved video games would be used for recreational purposes. That's what they're for.
Yeah, and they do have like the limitations in place. They creating this like a library too, which makes it a forward-thinking way to do it, right? Because let's be honest, like when it comes to like this sort of stuff, is never going. You can't stop it. You can legislate. You can say it's copyright infringement. You can do whatever you want. But in like 20 years ago, I could download a single file that contained every single Super Nintendo game from the 16-bit era in a couple of gigs into one like zip file. I could download that over 20 years ago. Do you think that's impossible to get now? No. It's even easier, right? Like this is not like you're not going to get rid of it, right? Like
you need to lean into it.
If the goal is not to there, you have to figure out a way to do it. Like, and I think when we discussed this last time, it's like you cannot fight inevitability, right? Like the reason video games are being preserved, the reason why something like this is even possible is because of what I just said, is that 20 years ago you could download all this. It's because fans have been preserving games. They've been backing up their own games. They've been working to deconstruct hardware, to emulate hardware, to make them playable on modern systems or different systems, to do it just for the love of it because they're not making money off it. They're obviously like bad actors that can take things and and make money off it. But like at its core, people aren't making money of this thing. It's about sharing and preserving history and and paying respect to all that sort of stuff. Like that's where it comes from, and that's who's already put in the hard work, the community. And so now we want to create a library out of it, or people within the community do, or they want to go about
for historical reasons.
For historical reasons. And it's like, no, sorry, you can't. It's like, well, then why don't you do it then? If you're so powerful, it's like, well, they wouldn't even be able to. They don't have the resources to digitally preserve everything. And they go, oh, they'll have to go ask. They'd have to go to torrent sites and go, oh, let's just take all the hard work from people that have digitally preserved everything anyway, and use that. We know like game companies have been using ROMs and emulation. Nintendo has been bought out. Mm-hmm. It's just like embrace it already. Like,
I know, and especially when considering the global gaming industry and the generation of the revenue is, I think, an important point. So according to a Forbes article from November 2023, the global gaming industry generated an estimated $184.4 billion in 2022. beating out the global music industry at 26.2 billion and the global movie industry at 26 billion in box office revenue in the same year. So gaming is more than double the size of music, the music industry and the movie industry combined. And yet we do not have infrastructure in place to preserve the art that is generating this astronomical amount of money. This is insane. Like, I think it's ridiculous. I'm sure there is dedicated, I can't verify, I haven't verified independently, but movie stuff is preserved all the time.
But it's a very different thing, right? So in the US, there's a National Film Archive where movies get placed in this, so they're preserved, stored, that's like, right. The physical film reel, but then I think there's even digital backups and things like that. But like, there's been documentaries but it's taken people like, film director Martin Scorsese to be able to get preservation to where it is in like institutions like that. So an interesting fact, I don't know the exact number, but before 1910, so like the first 20, or say 1915, the first 20 to 30 years of film, like short silent films and things like that, pretty much 90% of it has been lost forever, like irrecoverable. Like, there is like films that are no longer exist because it was like, the film stock at the time was very flammable and like also fragile and things like that, but there was no effort put to preservation. So they were actually lost. And obviously back then people couldn't
upload it to the cloud.
Exactly. They couldn't scan it in to their PC and then what people are doing now, like there's restoration projects and preservation projects for movies like Star Wars, like versions of the film that existed without all the special edition or the post-production that was
adding color
20 years
to black
later.
and white.
Yeah, and that goes to show you that like all that film was lost forever. And then, like film archives, things like that, they found like a big batch of them and they were able to preserve it, and that would have been lost as well. So like they were able to save things, and it was just like individuals and community and passionate people that are in the industry that spearheaded that, right? And that's what they did for movies. But then, a lot of it's lost to time. And now like people want to do that for games, right? So it's like, sure, there's like versions of these torrents that are out there, or there's people that have, like myself included, like little gaming handhelds that have, huge libraries of retro games that are emulated on like classic hardware from 20 years ago. And all that exists everywhere, right? But like, that's what's keeping all of that history preserved. Like, if you were to delete all of that, there would be games from like the 16-bit era or the 8-bit era, or that will just be lost forever.
Yeah, they'll be lost, or like I wrote in the article, they're needlessly difficult to access.
Yes, that's right.
That's the problem. Like, that's a part of the problem. If there are and there will be games that fall to the wayside and are forgotten, and I don't want them to be forgotten either. And I don't want it all to just be successes remembered. I want to remember Concord forever, Costa. And I want it to.
I wish I had like an actual board, a physical copy of the game.
That would have been crazy. That would.
Or just like, I should have had the foresight, just be like, oh, this is an absolute mess. I'm just going to run down to JB Hi-Fi and just buy a copy of the game.
You bought Sony's biggest turd.
Well, I'd have it on the shelf. I'd frame it.
I'd put it in the background over here.
Yeah.
Over here somewhere. I'll put it up there. Right there.
Yeah, I'd put it like somewhere around there.
But yes, let's keep it moving along here. Let's talk Russia and Google. I thought this is hilarious. Again, a really funny, real story. Russia is fining Google 2.5 decillion dollars. I didn't know this word even existed until yesterday. I had no idea.
I'm just looking at the number of zeros.
Do you want to take a guess how many zeros there are?
27, 28. I just counted.
33.
Sorry. 33. I counted wrong then.
33 zeros I think it's 33. It's too much money. It's actually more money, and this is an anecdote from myself. I think it's more money than all money that's been on Earth since the creation of money. You know what I mean? Like money, physical money hasn't been around for that long if you factor in the age of the planet.
Wait, so I didn't.
This is a real story.
So it's actually a fine. It's saying you owe this amount of money. I thought it was like I just misread the headline where it's like, oh, they're suing him for like
a couple
I
billion.
figured that, like a number that doesn't exist.
Yeah, okay, so this is the headline. Russia officially fines Google more money than what exists in total on Earth. And what has happened? This is a multi-year court case between Russia's media stations and Google. And what has happened is the conclusion of a 4-year court battle that began after YouTube banned the Russian channel Sargrad in 2020 in response to US sanctions. That has come to a conclusion, and it was also involved, I think it was also involved in the court case was other Russian-owned or backed channels on YouTube were banned from Google's platform in 2022 following the invasion of Ukraine. In total, 17 Russian stations were banned from YouTube, and as a result, the Russian court has found a fine of 100,000 rubles, or approximately $1,025 a day, is appropriate, with the following caveats. Fines double every week and accrue compound interest. So the judge even said, that was overseeing the process, the case was described, a case in which there are many, many zeros. This is an astronomical figure. This is like, just for context here, and perspective's sake, the World Bank estimated that the global revenue of the planet, everyone on the planet, every person working was approximately.
I'm doing my part.
Yeah, everyone. I mean, I pay taxes. It's upsetting. Is approximately 100 trillion. That's a lot of money. Nvidia's worth one of them, 1 trillion. So if Earth as a whole paid every cent to Russia, it would take the planet 200 quintillion years, or I'm not even going to say that many zeros. That's I don't know what that is. That's quintillion in zeros. Reese, put that up on the screen somewhere. But it's more years than the planet is even been around for. Like, this is insane. Google, or also for perspective, Google's revenue in the last quarter was 88 billion.
Well, that's like, it's a down payment.
That's like one single teardrop in the lake that is
in the ocean.
Yeah, in the ocean that is 2.5 decillion or decillion or however. I literally didn't know that word existed until yesterday.
Yeah. But isn't like Google the actual like word, the meaning is like a large number? Like
yes, and I do believe that Russia missed an opportunity to find Google.
To define them like one Google.
That could have been fun.
Yeah, Google. Yeah, Google. Numbers like...
Isn't it spelled Googol?
Yeah, it's to refer to a number that's 10 to the power of 100.
This is too much. I don't think they're ever going to get this money out of it.
They should have like fined them one Google.
They should have fined Google a Google. That's funny.
Yep. Yes, that's
that's
where's
comical.
Your sense of humor, Russia?
Yeah.
If it's going to be meaningless because Google, like they basically said because we don't operate in the country, like it doesn't mean anything to us. Do whatever we want.
They haven't operated actively in Russia since 2022. But yeah, that is a real story.
Find them at Google. Forget decillion.
It's like at this point it doesn't even matter. Like, why stop at 2.5? Just do 10. 10 decillion. Like, it doesn't matter at this point. You're talking in quintillion years. What? Like, as soon as, if your fines reach in the to the power of something, I think it's like, you will just declare bankruptcy. Like, this is, you can't pay this off. It's to the power.
Like, I just think it's just weird that was agreed upon. Like that yes, that's the fine. But I guess maybe it was just done just to
compound interest, baby.
Just to make it a global story.
Yeah. I think we finish off with the portable, potentially portable PS4.
This is a quick one. I think this is cool because there's rumors that Sony is developing their like an actual handheld, because they released their the Portal for the PlayStation 5, but that's just like an Android display that connects to your console just to stream the game directly from the console. So it's not an actual piece of hardware. But anyway, yeah, this is crazy because somebody took an actual PlayStation 4 Slim. It's an actually Australian YouTube creator called Restore Technique, and they transformed it into a handheld called the PS4 T, or PS4 Transport, or Transpo, as he says in the video. And yeah, it's big, right? It weighs 1.7 kilos, and it's as far as battery life, it's got like, it lasts for 90 minutes using a 12 volt 10,000 milliamp battery, custom fan controlling, so you can't actually take it on a plane or anything like that, but you can take it out and about, and it's a PlayStation 4. So the way he did it was actually take the PS4 Slim and customize the motherboard, like, you know, like remove things like that you don't need, like network ports or unnecessary USB thingos, and then modded it to add like heat sinks, and then modded the actual controller, like pulled apart a DualShock to put that into like the case, got the case like 3D printed using a specific type of resin, ordered all the components, put it together, worked out that it was overheating, then had to do actually had to do like a custom fan controller, so it had to overclock, so you could actually like boost the PS4 fans, like fan speed higher than what it needs to be, because you're in like a tiny little handheld shell. So it's impressive, right? Because it's the actual PS4 hardware turned into a handheld.
Yeah, he's
right?
repurposed it, which is sick.
Which then, like, you know, if like my whole thing is that, like, if Sony took this and it's like, okay, use like a 6 nanometer, 5 nanometer node, like a really cost effective node, transform that, like, you know, whatever it is, 14, whatever it is on the PS4, was it like 7, 8? I don't even know.
I don't know.
But anyway, like, you can just shrink the node. Actually put it on a smaller board, do the, you know, have the GPU and boost the CPU, make it more power efficient, etc., etc. So they could have a PlayStation Portable that with the power of the PS4, I think, quite easily. If somebody can turn a PS4 Slim into a handheld, a working handheld,
definitely
was never meant to be a handheld, that actually fits in your hands. Sure, it's heavy and only gives you like an hour and a half, but, you know, like gaming handhelds don't really give you tons of gaming time, really. So, like, I mean, if they were to do a more efficient version, I think like a proper PS5 style portable, or PS4 level of graphics portable from Sony would be impressive.
Absolutely. I do want to. I remember the PSP.
Vita.
Yeah, PS
And the
Vita,
PSP.
and the PSP as well.
Yeah, I had the PSP, loved it.
Yeah. No, I do want to see that. I think it's. I mean,
this is cool because we reported a
proof
story
of concept
on like somebody turned like an original Xbox into a gaming handheld, and there's been stories of people turning like a GameCube into a handheld as well. Like, this is, you know, like, in terms of like, you know, modders and DIY, people do these projects for fun, and it's awesome to see. But, like, you know, as we know with like the Steam Deck and ROG Ally X and all these other gaming handhelds, that if Sony decided to go the handheld route again now, they'd be able to do something pretty impressive if somebody can just not easily, but can turn a PS4 into a gaming handheld. Then surely they could do like a compact PS4 level handheld if they wanted to. or if it makes sense for them to do. Like, they're obviously paying off all that Concord debt.
Oh yeah, that's right, Concord. Yeah, maybe they do need to make a handheld then to pay off the Concord. No, look, I think it's a no-brainer.
It's a catch-22. Like, Sony be like, yeah, we'd love to, but we spent all our money on Concord. But then the PS4 like a PlayStation handheld would pay off your Concord debt, which would
and they should call it the PlayStation Blade.
Yeah.
Because it needs to be.
You want something called the Blade. I'm gonna have to find. Like if we're at CES, I'm sure there'll be one product with the name Blade in there.
Oh, it has to be. It has to be. I'll give it an award.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what it is. It measures what now and.
No. Yeah. Sony needs to do a handheld, and I think the Nintendo Switch and the Steam Deck are like proof of concepts that it can work. And I think
I think everybody's going that route. I think we're going to see an Xbox handheld. I think that's guaranteed. We're going to see more generations of Steam Deck. We're going to see obviously the Switch 2. To be honest, like portable gaming handhelds are going to be the next big thing. I think you are, because they haven't really gone away, right? Like they've been a massive thing since the Game Boy and mobile gaming. Like that figure that you quoted of like 180 billion, a big chunk of that is mobile gaming.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yep,
it's massive, and I think we'll wrap up on that one. Thank you very much for listening. If you have made it this far, please chuck the video a like. If you're listening on audio, go head over to the YouTube. There's plenty of graphics for you to look at, some video as well. And thank you very much for listening. We will be back next week with hopefully a less crazy week. Let's hope for. Oh, we also need to go over some of our reviews. So maybe we'll do that at the top of next week.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I've got a sleep mask that is
maybe we just don't do news next week. We just do like a review roundup if we have enough.
If we have enough, yeah, because I have an ultra wide Corsair ultra wide, the Xenon or whatever. I don't know if you can see it in the camera angle, but you can't. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe. And I've also got that Alienware one. It's 4K 240 at 27 inches, which I think is too small. But we'll see. Thank you very much for listening, guys. We will be back next week. We'll see you then. Bye.